Welcome to the It Was a Thing on TV podcast, episode 11, submission 334, Pitfall, airing from September 14th, 1981 until September 1982 in syndication, and also on Global in Canada. Hosted by Alex Trebek. Our best guess in the number of episodes is 130, give or take.
Today, all it takes is one wrong step, and shoot, you're in big trouble. Our players attempt to cross this bridge to win a prize package worth $2,500. Watch now as they brave the dangers to win thousands of dollars on Pitfall. Hang on, Eileen. You're standing on a pitfall. And Bill, but that's one, too. Now here comes the man to guide you through all the pitfalls, Alex Trebek.
Thank you, John Barton.
Chico did the open today. Thank you, Chico, very much. And Greg is here as always, just about. And I'm here as always, unfortunately. And Pitfall, I think Pitfall just didn't know what its identity was. I mean, there were bigger issues than that, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So there was two contestants. They did 2 games per episode. The first part of the game, I don't want to call it a qualifier, but it's what took you to the bonus round, which we'll get to in a little bit. There were questions of a psychological, opinion-based basis, and people in the audience had little handheld devices, not unlike the Ask the Audience tabulators that Millionaire would use. And they'd say, okay, so, which of these would you like to get as a birthday present? Would you like to get a diamond ring? Would you like to get flowers? Would you like to get chocolate? Or would you like to get cash? And so you just hit A, B, C, or D. There's a little computer sound effect as they tabulated the answers. And the 2 contestants would then answer what they thought was the most popular answer. And if they chose the most popular answer, they got 1 point. Or it is a point, but it wasn't shown on the screen as a point. It wasn't like a numerical readout. It was a scale with 5 segments, and 1 segment lit up for each correct answer they got right. And if you got 5, you won the game, and that's actually the best scenario you could be in for the bonus round, which we'll get to in a little bit. But so you would light up 1 segment for each question you got right. The first, the third, and the 5th segments got you what's called a pit pass in the bonus round. We'll get to that in a little bit. So a lot of people won the game with, say, 4 answers right. So they'd get a pass for the first question right and a pass for the third question right. But since they didn't get the 5th question right, they wouldn't get all 3 pit passes. That was sort of the boring part of the game. I mean, they didn't add any sort of flavor to it. It was very bland. And is very, very, I don't want to say opposite, but very different from what the Pitfall bonus round was all about. And this is what people remember. So the game Pitfall, the bonus round, was done on a set with 8 elevators. Not fancy Otis elevators like you'd see in a building or even like a freight elevator. Just basically 8 different shafts with a little, each compartment could raise or lower somebody, and not all that fast. Not as fast as an elevator. It'd probably go maybe about half a foot to a foot per second. So it's a very slow descent and a slow rise back to the top. So they would, they being the show, would flash the numbers of the different elevator sections. And there were 8 of them. And you wanted to get the numbers that were flashed twice, because that's where the pitfalls were, the elevators that would sink you down. So you have this little light show where it flashes, let's say, section 1, then elevator 5, elevator 2, elevator 4, elevator 7, elevator 8, elevator 3, elevator 8, elevator 1, elevator 5. So they do 11 lights, and the object is 3 of those numbers were flashed twice, and those 3 are the pitfalls. So the idea is remember which numbers you saw twice and get those pit passes. And if you only had 2 or 1, you're obviously taking a ride at some point if you get that far. Alex and the contestant would then go up in another elevator. So there's actually like 9 elevators here. They'd actually go up to the starting platform. And this is all trivia. This is not psychological based or opinion based. It was just straightforward trivia, reasonably easy trivia at that. The contestant would have 100 seconds to get across the bridge to claim a prize. Now, the prize originally started off at about $5,000 in value. After 13 weeks, the prize budget got slashed a little bit. The end prize was then worth about $2,500. You'd get $100 for each platform you got to if you didn't get all the way to the end. If you got to the end, you got the big prize. But about halfway through the season, after the first 13 weeks, 65 episodes, Platform 5 was replaced with, instead of $100 or a total of $500 at that point, there'd be a small prize, a portable TV or something reasonably expensive. I mean, maybe in the $200 to $300 range. And then, again, like I said, if you got all the way across, you got the prize, and I think you got the money. I'm not 100% sure, but you supposedly also won the prize at the end, the $2,500 prize. I say supposedly. It's a big word here.
No.
Well, sometimes you bite off a little more than you can chew. I don't know anything about the cost of the elevators on Pitfall. Elevators are not cheap. Gosh, I know that because the elevator at my school keeps breaking down about 2 or 3 times a year, and there's always an issue about, it's going to cost blank $1,000 to fix it, not even just to rebuild it or replace it. Just to fix it would be thousands of dollars. So in 1982, the production company behind Pitfall, Catalina Productions, went bankrupt. And as a result, many contestants plus staffers did not receive their pay or their winnings. I did find someone who did an interview. It was done with Chuck Donegan online. She was interviewed by Chuck Donegan, I believe, about 15 years ago or so. She was on Pitfall. She won many prizes. And actually, her run is at least partially on YouTube. All she ended up winning on Pitfall, actually winning, not the prizes that she said she was going to get. All she got was a trip to Paris. And I think from what I saw or read, she was on for at least 4 episodes. So I think she amassed over $20,000 in prizes or winnings. And all she got was a trip to Paris. And to add insult to injury, it was just the hotel accommodations. Her husband had to pay for the airfare from Vancouver or wherever they lived to Paris.
Oh, Jesus.
So it wasn't even a full-fledged flight. It was just the hotel occupancy, not the flight there, not ground transportation after you arrive in Paris at Charles de Gaulle or Orly or wherever you're flying in from. Everything was paid for the contestant except for the hotel room.
Wow.
At least she got something. As I mentioned, so the staff wasn't paid. And sort of famously, and this has been mentioned by Alex Trebek in the past in interviews, he still has a copy of his bounced check from Catalina Productions in his basement office on the wall. And actually, we're going to put a little audio in here. This is courtesy of the Archive of American Television via the Wink Martindale YouTube page. Alex explaining the whole situation, why he didn't get paid, and then what happens in the future.
What do you remember about the series Pitfall?
It's the only time in my life that I have been stiffed for a salary. I was offered a job by Bill Armstrong, who had worked with Peter Marshall on Hollywood Squares, and he was up in Canada doing the show, and he said, would you like to come up and host? I said, sure. So now I get offered a job in Canada, and they send me the paperwork, and they said, you must be a member of the Canadian Union, otherwise we can't hire you. And I was a member of the Canadian Performers Union, ACTRA, and I said, fine. So then I get up there, and I'm approached by one of the Canadian Union people in Vancouver who says, you can't work this show. And I said, why? He said, they're not signatories. I said, what do you mean they're not signatories? Part of my contract says that I have to be a member of the union. I assumed that they must be signatories in order to put that provision in there. So there was a big fight. The head of the show came to me and said, if you don't perform, we're going to sue you because we have a contract. And the union said, if you perform, you're going to be in deep trouble with the union because they're not signatories. Finally, at the 11th hour, they resolved their differences. And then we did 13 weeks of programming, and they paid me. And then we did another 13 weeks of programming, and they didn't pay me. And I found out, then I went to the union, I said, you got to help me here, they're not paying me. They said, well, there's really nothing we can do. I said, what? I stood up for you guys in order to get them to become signatories, and now you're not willing to stand up for me? And then I pursued it through some other entities, and I discovered through a lawyer that on the scale of those who are to be paid, I was about 35th on the list. Somebody who had done work at the studio, carpentry work or whatever, was way at the head of the list because they had a mechanics lien. And as a performer, as the host, I was way down at the bottom of the list, and I could not prevent them from marketing the program, even though they had never paid me. And I still have that check on the wall downstairs behind my desk. That's the only time in my life someone has stiffed me for hosting or doing work on a program. But things turned around. I got other shows after that.
And the big one came soon thereafter.
What was that?
Jeopardy.
Oh, it did? Good for me. Haha.
And yeah, Alex went on to bigger and better things. In 1983, he did host a revival of his NBC game show Battlestars, the all-new Battlestars. He also hosted a little pilot called Malcolm.
Well, in 1983, he would also host another little pilot.
Well, he would, but the difference between that pilot and this one is Malcolm is a future entry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But then he did host a couple of pilots for another show, which you may have heard of. And actually, if you think about it, one of us has been on the show, one of us is in the pool to be on the show, and Greg has seen this show for about 35 years.
Yes, it's literally been on the entire since the year I was born. So it spans my entire life.
And of course, what show are we talking about? We're talking about
Classic Concentration.
High Rollers. Oh, no. I actually thought you were going to say High Rollers, Classic Concentration. Well, that would come later. I mean, he had a very successful 1980s, to say the least. Had many shows after Pitfall that had a decent lifespan, but obviously we're talking about Jeopardy, the show that is still on the air now 35 plus years later.
Yes, and still going strong to this day.
Yeah, and like I said, Alex still has the check framed, the bounce check, $49,000. And that's in 1982 money. Now, I know that's 1982 Canadian money, but still, that's a good chunk of change that he got stiffed on.
Hold up, I'm going to check to see if inflation calculator actually Canadian money.
It's called Canadian Inflation Calculator, eh?
It's inflation calculator bank of inflation calculator.
Inflationcalculator.ca.
That's the best Alex That's the best Alan Thicke I think I've ever heard.
No, the best Alan
Ben!
Thicke I ever heard is from. I know the best Alan Thicke I ever heard is from Gilbert Gottfried. Let's get that straight. Okay, $49,000 Canadian in 1981 comes out to $130,730.47 in 2019.
Which
And how much of that
realistically-
is in American?
Well, that'd be about 100,000 American. I think it's about an 80% conversion rate. I think a dollar Canadian is 80 cents US or thereabout. But still, it's somewhere in the range of about 100,000 to like that $130,000 number you mentioned. So it's not insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but dang. In addition, Chico mentioned that this aired on Global. Reruns of this show ran well into the late 90s.
What?
Seriously?
On Canadian television, and that's actually a reason why there's, from what I've heard, there's so many episodes out there. If you go on YouTube, there has to be at least probably, I'd say about a dozen episodes out there, maybe even a little bit more. And yes, some station, I want to say maybe it was in Hamilton, Ontario, and there was an intrepid game show video trader who had lived in Hamilton and had access to this channel, and he recorded a number of episodes. So, yeah, I mean, it's feasible. I've seen shows that, and I'm sure there's shows that are on TV right now that have rerun for 15 years on the same network. And I'm not necessarily talking cable. I mean, look at like everything Byron Allen, with all due respect. You know, you have Comics Unleashed. They're showing episodes from 2005 and 6, for heaven's sakes, with comics that are deceased.
Wow.
So
Richard Jenny.
Richard Jenny. There you go. I mean, it's in the realm of possibility.
I was gonna say Richard Jenny, who may be in a future entry.
Yes. You did submit that, yes.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's in the realm of possibility that they may show, that a 15-year-old rerun would be showed. So, yeah, I mean, who am I to not believe this person who lives in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and had access to whatever channel, the global affiliate, or maybe it was on CTV, or who knows. But yeah, reruns aired for like 15 years after it had been canceled. And even still then, they still hadn't gotten money to pay Alex Trebek. Well, yeah, I know Catalina had been bankrupt. Well, that might be the reason why the TV station or the network got the show so cheap. Because who are they going to pay? The production company? Production company doesn't exist anymore. I don't know that much about entertainment law, so maybe I'm just talking out of my butt.
Especially Canadian entertainment law.
Yeah, especially, because they do have some interesting rules regarding if you use foreign talent and stuff like that. We're not going to get into that. But, so the idea was, for the bonus round, I think we sort of deviated a little bit. You want to get across the bridge in 100 seconds. And if you hit a pitfall, you went down into the bottom, the lower floor. And it took probably about, I'd say, 10 seconds to go down. And you couldn't answer any questions until you got to the bottom. So that was wasted time. But then once you got one question right, you came back up. And you continued. And the thing is, if you had a pit pass for that elevator number, you had to give it to Alex. That would allow you to cross over and proceed with the game. And there was at least one time somebody forgot to give Alex a pit pass, went down, and really wasted a ton of time. And the tragedy of this was it was on the first elevator. So this person was at elevator 1. I'm not even joking. 80 seconds? 70 seconds? I think ultimately they got to like number 4 or number 5. But yeah, you forgot your pit pass, And that basically screwed your game. Well, it wouldn't necessarily have screwed her game, but I mean, she got like nothing right for well over a minute. The music on Pitfall is great. Sometimes the contestants weren't so great, and Alex may have gotten a little carried away. Here's a little footage of one of the bonus rounds, and this is courtesy of Chuck Donegan. Enjoy, especially about 3 minutes and 45 seconds from now.
And her name is Rosemary Smiley, and in a moment, Rosemary, I'm going to take you upstairs to our bridge and see if you can cross those 8 sections safely to win a big prize. Dan did beautifully, won over $17,000. You could exceed that total very easily. You're a good player.
I hope so.
All right. As you know, in our light show, we light up each section at random, but the 3 pitfalls, those bad sections in which you lose time, are going to light up twice. The 5 good sections will light up 1 time only. You ready?
Right.
Let's dim the lights, turn around. Here we go. Figure it out? You earn 2 pit passes in the match. Make your selection right now. You have to use some strategy, of course, if you're sure where all the pitfalls are, whether you want to take the 2 passes early on or later in the round. If you feel confident about answering questions. Number 1? No? Number 5. Got number 5. 1 more to pick. 5 and 7. Let's go up top. See if it works for her. Here we are, Rosemary. Coming up in the elevator, she says, I didn't get them. She's not certain that she made the right choice. Did you think number 1 was a pitfall?
Yeah.
Okay, I did too. Well, you know then that what's going to happen is that early on, if you give me a right answer, you're going to take a fall, go down and lose some time, but it's good to get it out of the way early, because then it's clear sailing for you. Every correct answer, an additional $100 in cash. You'll have a total of 100 seconds. You've got 2 pitfall passes in your hand, and hopefully you're going to make it all the way over to here, so you get to enjoy this prize.
You and a friend will be on your way to sunny Playa Blanca, Mexico. Your vacation package includes round-trip airfare, ground transportation, 3 weeks, double accommodation, and your meals. Rosemary, your prize is worth $5,080.
Fabulous vacation. I know you want to get away from all the bad weather and everything like that, and work and people who bug you, right?
Right.
Go there with somebody special in your life. Here we go. In Snow White, 100 seconds on the clock. When the witch wanted to know who was the best-looking kid in town, who did she ask?
The mirror.
The mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall. Go ahead. Number 1. And it's a pitfall, as we thought. But that's all right. It's right at the beginning. You've got over 80 seconds, and we're going to stop the clock if you give me a correct answer to this one. What would Robin Hood stick in his quiver?
Pass.
Arrows. What famous naval hero got sent home pickled in a keg of rum?
Pass.
Lord Nelson. Which is the Buckeye state, Oklahoma or Ohio?
Oklahoma.
No, it's Ohio. What does a milliner do for a living?
Men's shoes.
No, makes hats. According to military slang, what's the state of things when there's been a snafu?
Pass.
It's all messed up. There's only one animal you can get lard from. Which animal?
Pass.
The hog. Name the mythical Scottish village that appears for 1 day every 100 years.
Pass.
Brigadoon. Where would a woman wear her yashmak?
On her head.
On her head, no, that's not specific enough. Over her face, it's a veil worn in public. Budapest is the capital of what country?
Oh, Turkey.
Oh, Hungary. True or false? The fingerprints of identical twins are always the same.
False.
False, that's right. Stop the clock. Break her up. Hey, how about that? Rosemary, are you having a good time?
Great.
You like it down there in the pits, don't you? I went through about 8 questions. You used up our whole questions for the week.
Really?
We have no more to go. But you've got 25 seconds, so let's
good.
pick it up and start from there. All right, let's see if you can make up for it now. At the market, they are sold as acorns, giant yellows, and crooknecks. What are they?
Nuts.
Squashes. In professional football, you have what team for Washington?
Pass.
The Redskins. The continent is called Australia. How many countries are actually on that continent?
10.
No, 1. Australia. Where is the Rosetta Stone, in the British Museum or in Tiffany's in New York? Oh, we're out of time. And you have set a new record. You've made it to square one. Here, I'll show you what it's like to get to the end. Come along with me, Rosemary. We're going to take a commercial break and show everybody where the pitfalls were. You come with me. Yes. Goodbye.
Man, I thought the High Rollers finale was going to be the last time I saw Alex like that.
How wrong were you?
Oh, man, he roasted the absolute crap out of that contestant.
Yeah, this is Alex Trebek at peak Alex Trebek-ish.
Yeah, he could be snarky at times, but that was like top tier Alex Trebek.
That was, yeah.
Well, I think you guys, I found a new show you guys can watch. I think both of you said that you've never seen this until now.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen it.
I haven't seen it in like forever, though.
Okay,
I've
never mind.
seen
Then we'll
it in
edit
the
that
last
part out.
Yeah, I've seen it in the last 6 months.
But yeah, there's a ton of it online. There's, like I said, probably at least a dozen episodes and clips. And yeah, Alex is a little different now than he was back then. He's still a little bit goofy. He's more lovable. I mean, I think Alex Trebek back in 81, 82 was just another game show host because he had hosted so many shows, some good, some bad, but most didn't last much more than about 2 years. And then he hit the big one.
Malcolm? Okay, not Malcolm.
Who said it was the new Battle Stars?
Oh, okay.
I thought it was going to be To Tell the Truth, 1990.
Hey, that was a good year for him.
Oh, yeah.
He had steady employment.
Oh, man. Yeah. Alex Trebek was raking in the money in 1990, and that started getting into the money he got from Phone Jeopardy.
No, he had very steady employment, at least on NBC.
Mm-hmm.
Between Classic Constellation and To Tell the Truth. 1990 and the first part of 91 were very good times in the Trebek household. Oh, and also we forgot about 1990. What else did he do in 1990?
Super Jeopardy.
Future Induction Super Jeopardy. Am I right? It's coming. We won't tell you when, but it's coming sooner rather than later.
Well, if you have an idea of what's coming up on Jeopardy, I guess you have an idea of when that's going to be.
Ooh, little teaser.
Yeah,
Greg's not wrong. Greg is definitely not wrong about his statement there. If you have an idea about what's going on with Jeopardy, what was announced within the last about 2 weeks or so, you know when we're going to be covering Super Jeopardy and its partner in crime, Monopoly. But that's a future episode. We're not worried about that right now. What we do know is Pitfall. I think you guys can agree with me on this. Pitfall.
That was definitely a thing on television.
It was a thing on TV. And it was a thing on Canadian TV, too. So we're crossing international boundaries.
It was a thing on TV, eh?
Well, that's it for this episode. Thank heavens. As always, remember, we're on social media. We're on the internet. We're everywhere. Just point your browser in the direction of itwasthethingontv.com. That'll link you to everything associated with our site. Until next week, and next week, I'm not going to say what's coming next week. 2 episodes again. We're going to do 2 episodes for a while at the very least. This might be a permanent thing. But there's 2 episodes that I know I have been anticipating doing since we first started doing the podcast. Do you gentlemen feel the same?
Yes.
Hi.
Oh, yes. These are going to be 2 great episodes. One of the shows is a show that a number of people said, are you going to cover the show? Are you going to cover the show? And I said, oh, we got it covered. Not going to say what it is, but yeah, we have it covered. But then the second episode next week isn't about a show per se. It's about how do I describe it? A much bigger thing. It's not about a show, and it's not about a short-lived show, but it's more of a general TV thing. I think it's pretty cryptic. I mean, I'm not giving too much away, but yeah, both episodes. The first one definitely is going to be a good one, I think. But the second episode next week, we're going to make some revelations that might just like blow the internet apart. Maybe not blow the internet apart, but given the grand scheme of what we're going to talk about, we have made revelations and discoveries that really like transcend television. Is that an appropriate description?
Yeah. You know what? I
Yeah.
think that's vague enough.
Yeah, these
Well, I'm not looking for vagueness. I think that's just an apt description of what next week is. We're gonna make some discoveries on something television centric, which might blow your mind. Realistically,
and it will add more to the lore of the show when we tell you what exactly all this stuff we have discovered in the whole time we've been doing this show in these 2 months. It's all going to lead up to that episode.
Yes, and actually the two shows next week are connected, and actually the
We'll
the
tell you
first
how
show,
they're connected.
well, the first show is connected to the grand scheme of the basis of the second show, but we're not going to get into that. It's going to be a good week next week. Next week's going to be a real fun set of episodes, and again, it might be very mind blowing. And oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? But we'll save that for next week. As always, Chico, thank you very much for joining us, and Greg, thank you very much for joining us. And you listening on your devices, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week for 2 really good episodes. And I'm not even like this isn't hyperbole. They're going to be great episodes. I'm going to have so much fun with them next week. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to It Was a Thing on TV.
Wow! Pitfall.
Pitfall's on in the middle of the night. I don't like it because it's not right. Al Trebek almost got into a fist fight. It wasn't a very pretty sight. I think I sounded more like Randy Newman more than Gilbert Godfrey doing Alan Thicke.
Alex Trebek hosting his show with an elevator.
Running in the pitfall of the night. Running in the pitfall of the night. I can't do it.
Oh my God! The Iron.
Pitfall.
Roar! Pitfall.
It was a thing on TV. I'm Alan Thicke, running in the thick of the night.
Future induction. Yes.